Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Today I've got some more Entitled Parents stories which you're gonna love. Boys will be boys. This is fresh, it just happened. I'm a senior developer for a triumvirate of companies in the electronic warfare sector. Because we deal a lot in drones, the Christmas gift of the company to me was a miniature version of a drone they produce. Pretty good one too, perfect collision detection, GPS, battery lasting 45 minutes, smooth drive. Still, it's just as large as the hobby version of drones, and of course it has open source firmware and software. So I decided to take my kids out early today to fly the drone. The park was almost empty, only some kids in their early teens I know from our neighborhood and a couple parents with little kids. After teaching my kids how to fly the drone, I left them to fly it and sat on a bank nearby to check on my mail. Not a couple minutes passed before my daughters started yelling, "Daddy!" I looked up, seeing this fat kid trying to rip the remote off my older daughter's hand with one hand while punching at her shoulder with the other hand repeatedly. I jumped up, started running to them. The kids started running to hide behind a rotund man, a fat man who was his entitled dad. As I approached, he started talking to me with a feces-eating grin, telling me how his boy was just curious, he meant no harm, and yeah, our version of boys will be boys in our native language. While arguing with him, I realized the kid moved away, just to be circled around by a group of boys roughly his age. Mind you, we're still a collectivist community, and one of the no-nos of the street laws is to never hit a girl. Those other boys were not impressed. After a brief chatter I sadly couldn't hear, they started roughing him up, kicking his ankles, slapping him. Then one held him tight and they all started punching at his shoulders as he started to cry loudly. I'm not a violent person, but my daughters are my sun and moon and were grievously enraged. As the rotund man in front of me turned to save his offspring, I held his arm, making sure my grip was iron tight. Imitating his feces-eating grin, I told him, "Where are you going? Don't worry, boys will be boys," and I pushed him back, moving on to the kids, yelling, "Alright boys, that's enough," giving them time to scatter. I didn't let the man touch them. He could do nothing but drag his whining kid outside the park. Of course, the other kids should be taught that actions have consequences. That's all our community's collectivism stands for. So I took them to the nearby supermarket alongside my daughters and bought them all jumbo-sized Ruffles, chocolate, and black cherry juice cola. After all, as the Persians said, men daka ducka, as I can roughly translate, karma female dog. Wow, what a story to start the new year with. Boys will be boys, more like boys will be held accountable for their actions. Yeah, not gonna lie, in this instance, that kid was a bully and I feel like he got what was coming to him. Normally, I would say that two wrongs don't make a right, but with this, I'm happy to turn a blind eye. Moving on to our second story, just pay your babysitter. I just got money out of the ATM to pay our babysitter for tonight, and it reminded me of a story from back in the archives. Now, I'm one of 5 kids in my family. My sister, the second youngest of the lot of us, would babysit for extra money when she was a teenager. She had good clients that paid on time and bad clients that were always short on money or forgot to bring the right amount or conveniently forgot her rates. My sister got smart pretty quick, but those first few babysitting gigs showed her how trashy people can be. So my brothers and I had just been stiffed on payment for picking apples and we were loudly complaining about it in the barn. No cussing inside the house. My sister hears us and joins in with her story. Apparently, one family owes her close to $200 in back pay. We all assume she's talking about one of the bad families and ask why she'd keep working for them if they don't pay up. But no, it's upstanding members of our community, the Smiths, names changed to protect the guilty. My sister has been watching their Heckians in town after school for almost a month, then riding her bike and getting the bus home, and they never seem to have the full amount. But because they're a good family that goes to our church, she's been letting it slide and agreeing to more work with them with the promise that next time they'll have the full amount. Yeah, that never happens. I didn't know what the sunk cost fallacy was at the time, but that is what was going on right here. For those of you that don't know, the sunk cost fallacy is pretty much continuing to do something just because you spent time doing it before, even though it's not necessarily profitable or worth your time to do in future. Well, we're full of righteous indignation, having just been shorted ourselves, and we have a car, so we come up with a plan. My sister is scheduled to babysit for them for that upcoming Friday night after school until 10 PM. This was unusual because they were strictly after school up until now, so we figured that it must be for something important. Part of the deal was that they would bring my sister home afterwards, but given the track record of shoddy promises, we didn't want to take the chance. My older brother stays at a friend's place so he can get to work in the morning, and my younger brother, sister, and I take the car to school. After school, we drive around to the Smiths. My sister jumps out and we wait at the end of the driveway. She takes in her diary/ledger thing and tells the Smiths that she's sorry, but they are about $200 in arrears and she can't babysit for them tonight until they're paid up in full. They aren't happy about it, but she sticks to her guns and walks out of the house. Mrs. Smith follows her outside and tells her that it's too late to back out of their agreement because they have a big night tonight. Mr. Smith is getting some kind of award and they need a babysitter. She can't believe my sister isn't acting like a good Christian by demanding all this money. Now, my brother has slept through more church than any person I know. I have no idea where he came up with this, but he belts out Romans 13:7, which is basically pay what you owe. Mrs. Smith is doing that goldfish thing where your mouth opens but nothing comes out. I'm weeing myself laughing. My sister is just giving her RBF or resting lady face, and my brother is hitting her with more Bible verses about paying up. I remember the render to Caesar one, but I've forgotten the rest, sorry. She goes back inside and Mr. Smith comes out. He offers my sister some of the money that they owe and promises that they'll have the rest after his event that they have to leave for very soon. My sister takes the money, updates the diary/ledger, and says that we'll come back when he has the rest of the money, and that due to their track record, she would need tonight's money in advance. It's now Mr. Smith's turn to do the goldfish thing. We drive off and get some shakes at a place in town and drive back over 30 minutes later. We're met by two frantic Smiths that have the money ready to go. They hand it over, my sister turns off her RBF and heads into the house. The Smiths, looking a little bit worse for wear, dart off to their car and peel out of the drive like their lives depend on it. Now for the aftermath. The Smiths did try and tell my parents that we were shakedown artists. My parents told them that they couldn't expect slave labor. But if the relationship was now soured, my sister wouldn't work for them anymore and they could find a new sitter. This was about the time Bookface was starting to get big. Between my sister telling the other sitters about her experience and a Bookface group that named and shamed locals that didn't pay or shorted their sitters, it was a very interesting few years for the Smiths and some other families in our small town. Oh, what a story, man. I feel like there was a little bit of pro-revenge in this one. What you guys did is totally right. If someone is not paying money, and $200 is a lot of money, yes, they need karma handed to them. How you and your sister handled the Smiths, that was absolutely perfect. Also, the icing on the cake is letting other people know how badly they've treated sitters, which of course means in future they're gonna have such a hard time finding one and they're probably gonna have to pay an absolute premium. But yeah, that is justice and that is how business should be done. Good to hear. Also, fair play to your brother for belting out Bible verses. That is so perfect. Now for our final story, entitled parent rejects present because it's not expensive enough. The entitled parent of this story is my maternal aunt's husband, though my aunt and their kid are entitled as well. For a little bit of necessary background on the entitled family, the entitled parent is a really unpleasant and entitled man that believes himself above everyone else, and has transmitted that belief to his son, an entitled kid, a bratty 4-year-old that has been raised thinking that he has the right to take anything he wants from others. He is a nice enough kid until you say no to him, then all heck breaks loose. My aunt lets him do whatever he wants and is generally an obnoxious person. I have a ton of little stories revolving this entitled family, but this one revolves around my mum making a toy train for the entitled kid. She had gone to their house and saw that the entitled kid liked to play on a box like some sort of cat, so she went and made a huge train toy for him, big enough he could crawl inside. She did it out of big boxes, painted them, made windows, drew and painted some minions as the entitled kid loved them. The result was an impressive toy that she put a lot of effort into. The entitled kid actually loved it. He came to our house and played and had a blast. The problem happened when my mum asked my aunt to take it home with her as she supposed she would, and she refused. She said it was too big to fit in the trunk, her husband would pick it up later in his bigger car, all sorts of excuses. My mum believed her lie and waited for them to come and take it. Weeks passed by and the only thing changing were the excuses. The entitled parent had no gas, my aunt thought it was better if the train stayed at our place so the entitled kid could play with it when he visited us. It got ridiculous. And then another one of my aunts told me that the entitled parent refused to take that ugly thing to their home because his kid played with expensive brand toys and not cardboard garbage. It broke my mum's heart. She put a lot of care and work into making that train and she was proud of it, and those words devastated her. I was beyond livid and have refused to talk to them beyond casual greetings ever since. The story has a happy ending of sorts. My mum gave the train to a woman of a low-income family that loved it and had a son that would be very happy to have it. So at least all of my mum's good work didn't go to literal garbage. Oh, well, that is so great to hear. I'm so glad it's still getting used by an appreciative family instead of entitled jerks who can't appreciate a handmade gift that literally took hours to make. Also, who cares about how much something costs? So much time and energy has gone into this gift. Why can't someone just respect that? Overall, your aunt just sucks. I hate her so much. Anyway, guys, that is gonna do it for my first video of 2020. I really hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, give the video a like, comment your opinions on the stories down below, and subscribe to my channel. Also, if you want more content from me, click the video on screen right away. I promise you won't regret it. With that being said, I will see you guys all tomorrow with another brand new upload on my channel.